Tom had always been someone who valued simplicity. After years of serving his country as a soldier, he returned home with a quiet determination to build a peaceful life. The loud noises, strict routines, and constant pressures of military life had left him exhausted in ways that sleep could not repair. For years, he rented a small apartment on the edge of town. But he longed for a place to call his own, a space where he could plant flowers, hear the birds in the morning, and finally feel grounded in the life he had worked so hard to protect. One sunny morning, Tom was sipping his coffee when his eyes fell on an unusual advertisement in the local newspaper. It was small, tucked between real estate listings and classified ads, but it caught his attention immediately. The headline read, "Abandoned Home for Sale, $99. At first, he thought it was a misprint. A house for $99? That seemed impossible in a town where even a tiny apartment could cost thousands. Curiosity piqued, he read on. The house was described as old and neglected, abandoned for decades. The ad mentioned peeling paint, a roof in need of repair, and an overgrown garden that hadn't been tended for years. But there was something about it that pulled at Tom. Perhaps it was the low price. Perhaps it was the challenge of restoring something forgotten. Or perhaps it was the sense that this house had a story to tell. Whatever it was, Tom knew he had to see it. The next day, he drove down the narrow, winding roads of his town until he reached the address. The house stood at the end of a quiet street, almost hidden behind tall trees and thick bushes. Its windows were dusty and grimy, the paint chipped and faded, and the gate hanging slightly off its hinges. The yard was wild, with weeds and tall grass covering the path to the front door. Yet, despite its neglected state, the house had a strange charm. It seemed to whisper tales of the past, of laughter and footsteps long gone. Tom parked his car and stepped out, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. As he approached the door, he noticed the intricate designs carved into the old wooden frame. Though worn, they hinted at the craftsmanship of a time when houses were built with care and attention to detail. With a deep breath, he pushed the door open. It creaked loudly, the sound echoing through the empty rooms like a voice from another era. Inside, dust floated in the sunlight streaming through the grimy windows. The air smelled faintly of old wood and forgotten memories. Tom could see the outlines of furniture covered in sheets, cobwebs in the corners, and cracked walls that had not felt paint in decades. It was clear that no one had lived here for a long time. Yet, as he walked from room to room, he felt a sense of curiosity and wonder. Each step seemed to awaken the spirit of the house, and he imagined the people who had once walked these floors. Tom began exploring systematically. In the living room, he found an old fireplace, with a mantel still adorned with faded photographs and trinkets. The photographs were black and white, showing people dressed in the fashion of decades past. A young woman smiled at the camera in one, a child held tightly in her arms. Another photo showed a group of people standing proudly in front of the house, dressed formally as if celebrating an important occasion. Tom wondered who they were and what had happened to them as he moved through the kitchen. He noticed the cabinets were mostly empty, but behind one, there was a small box filled with old coins and handwritten notes. The coins were tarnished, but they held a sense of history, as if they had been waiting to be discovered. The notes, though fragile and yellowed, were legible. They contained lists of names, dates, brief messages, mundane things like reminders to pay bills, but also hints of family stories and events long forgotten. Tom carefully placed the notes back in the box. Sensing that they were a piece of the house's story, the hallway led him to the bedrooms. In one room, a wardrobe still held old clothes. Dresses and suits from decades past hung in neat rows, as though someone had left them in a hurry and never returned. On the floor, an old diary lay partially open. Tom picked it up, brushing off the dust. The pages were filled with neat handwriting, describing daily life, joys, worries, and secrets. It was clear that this diary had been cherished, kept close to the owner's heart. Tom felt a sudden connection to the person who had written these words, as if the house itself was inviting him to listen. The attic was the last place Tom explored that day. He climbed the narrow stairs carefully, the wood groaning under his weight. At the top, he found a small, dimly lit space, filled with forgotten belongings. Boxes were stacked haphazardly, and old furniture leaned against the walls. In the corner, partially hidden beneath a dusty cloth, was a wooden chest. With some effort, Tom lifted the lid and discovered a collection of photographs, letters, and small keepsakes. The photographs were portraits of the family who had lived here long ago, smiling faces frozen in time. The letters told stories of everyday life, but there were also mentions of strange events that piqued Tom's interest. Something mysterious had happened here, something the town had forgotten. Tom spent hours in the house that day, moving carefully from room to room, imagining the lives of the people who had once lived here. He felt a sense of connection, as if the walls themselves were speaking to him. By the time the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the dusty floors, he knew he had found more than just a house. He had found a home with history, a place that had stories waiting to be discovered. As he stepped outside and looked back at the house, Tom felt a quiet determination. This would not just be a project to fix up a building. It would be a journey to uncover the lives of those who had come before. He imagined the family celebrating birthdays, sharing meals, and laughing in these rooms. He imagined their joys and sorrows, their hopes and dreams. And he knew that he had a responsibility to honor their memory, to care for this house, and to uncover the secrets it held. Driving home, Tom thought about the possibilities. The house had been abandoned for decades, yet it was filled with clues to the past. Each photograph, letter, and object was a piece of a puzzle, waiting for someone to put it together. He felt a thrill of excitement at the thought of discovering the full story. He also felt a sense of peace, knowing that this house, neglected as it was, would finally have someone to care for it again. That night, Tom could hardly sleep. He kept thinking about the house, the attic, the hidden treasures, and the diary. He realized that this simple $99 house was more than just a bargain. It was an opportunity to connect with history, to give life to forgotten stories, and to create a home that honored the past while embracing the future. He knew that he had made the right choice, and he felt a quiet pride in being the person who had given this house a second chance. The next morning, Tom returned to the house with cleaning supplies, determined to start restoring it. As he swept the floors and dusted the furniture, he imagined the voices of the past guiding him, showing him where each object belonged and telling him the stories behind them. He realized that restoring the house would be a slow process, but he didn't mind. For the first time in years, he felt a sense of purpose, a connection to something larger than himself. The house, once abandoned and forgotten, was beginning to feel alive again. And for Tom, it was not just a building. It was a bridge between the past and the present, a place where history and memory could coexist. He knew that this was only the beginning of his journey, and he was ready to uncover every secret the house held. Tom spent the next few days cleaning the house. Every corner held something forgotten. Every shelf held a memory waiting to be discovered. As he worked, he began to notice details he had not seen before. The wallpaper in the hallway had patterns that were faded but still beautiful. The staircase had small carvings along the banister, worn smooth by decades of hands brushing over them. Even the floorboards seemed to hold stories of footsteps long gone. Tom felt as if the house itself was alive, quietly observing him as he moved through its rooms. One afternoon, while moving an old cabinet in the corner of the living room, Tom felt the floor shift beneath it. Curious, he knelt down and examined the area. There, tucked under the wooden boards, was a small gap, just wide enough for a hand. Tom reached inside and pulled out a bundle of old letters tied together with a frayed ribbon. The paper was yellowed and brittle, and the handwriting was elegant. It was carefully written in ink that had faded over time. He untied the ribbon carefully, spreading the letters out on the floor. The words told stories of the family who had lived there long ago. There were letters from friends, notes about birthdays and special events, and even messages sent between family members who had moved away. But among these ordinary letters, Tom noticed a few that were different. They spoke of worries, strange occurrences, and something that the family did not fully understand at the time. The tone was serious, almost secretive, and Tom's curiosity deepened. Over the next few days, Tom focused on reading every letter and note he could find. Each one was a window into the past, revealing a family that loved deeply but had faced challenges that the town had forgotten. There were letters describing illnesses, financial struggles, and personal hardships, but also letters filled with joy, hope, and laughter. Tom felt a strong connection to these people he had never met. He imagined their voices as he read, their emotions jumping off the pages. In one of the letters, a woman named Margaret wrote about a series of strange events in the house. Small things, like objects moving or doors opening unexpectedly, had worried her. She mentioned that she had hidden a few important items to protect them from being lost or stolen. Tom's eyes widened. Could this be the clue that would reveal the mystery he sensed in the house? He carefully placed the letters back together, determined to find out more. Tom decided to search the house systematically for anything that might match the descriptions in the letters. He started in the attic, where he had found the wooden chest. The chest had contained photographs, letters, and small keepsakes. But perhaps there was more hidden beneath the layers of dust and forgotten belongings. He carefully lifted each box and moved aside old furniture. In a corner, partially hidden behind a stack of boxes, he found another small compartment built into the wall. The opening was narrow, but inside, he discovered a collection of items that seemed carefully chosen to be hidden. Among the items were small trinkets, coins, and jewelry. Tom recognized some pieces from the photographs he had seen in the chest. There were also more letters, including one that was sealed with a wax stamp. The seal bore a symbol that he did not recognize. He broke it carefully, unfolding the paper. The letter described a hidden key left somewhere in the house to protect a valuable secret. Tom's heart raced. The mystery he had sensed in the house was becoming real. He spent hours examining every corner of the attic, the living room and the bedrooms, trying to find the hidden key mentioned in the letter. As he worked, he imagined Margaret and her family, wondering if they had known that someone would one day come to uncover their secrets. He felt a strong sense of responsibility, as if he had been chosen to protect the history of this home. Every creak of the floorboards, every gust of wind through a broken window, seemed to guide him toward the truth. One evening, as the sun began to set and the house was bathed in warm golden light, Tom noticed a small crack in the wall of the hallway. It was subtle, almost invisible, but something about it drew his attention. He pressed gently, and a panel popped open, revealing a small hollow space. Inside was an old rusty key, carefully wrapped in cloth. Tom held it in his hands, feeling its weight and the importance it carried. He realized that this key might open a place in the house that had been locked for decades. The next morning, Tom began searching for a lock that matched the key. He tried every door, every cabinet, and every drawer. Finally, in the back of the basement, hidden behind an old shelf, he found a small, ornate door. It had been painted over and largely forgotten, but the key fit perfectly. With a turn of the lock, the door creaked open, revealing a tiny room filled with items that had been hidden for more than 70 years. Inside the room were boxes filled with documents, photographs, and small keepsakes. Tom carefully examined each item. The documents included deeds, letters, and official papers that revealed details about the family and the house. The photographs showed moments of happiness, family gatherings, and celebrations. Among the papers, Tom also found a journal, similar to the one he had discovered in the bedroom, but this one seemed even more personal. The writing was filled with emotions, fears, and observations about the world around the family. As Tom read the journal, he discovered hints of events that had never been explained in the town's records. There were references to a theft, a disappearance, and rumors of arguments between neighbors. The entries were carefully written, as if the author wanted to leave a record for someone who might one day uncover the truth. Tom realized that he was reading history that had been hidden for generations. He felt a mixture of awe and responsibility. This house, abandoned as it was a keeper of memories, a silent witness to events that had shaped the lives of those who had lived here. Tom spent weeks going through every letter, document, and photograph. He created a notebook of his own, carefully recording what he found and piecing together the story. He began to understand the lives of the people who had called this house their home. They had loved, struggled, and dreamed, just like anyone else, but their story had been lost in the passage of time. Tom felt honored to be the one to bring it back into the light. During this time, the town began to notice the changes in Tom's routine. Neighbors who had always wondered about the abandoned house started to stop by. Tom shared some of the stories he had uncovered, showing them photographs and letters. People were amazed to learn about the family who had lived there, about the hidden room and the mysterious key. The house that had been forgotten for decades was now slowly becoming a place of fascination and interest. Tom also realized that the discoveries in the house were more than just history. There were lessons about life, about resilience, and about the importance of remembering those who came before. Each letter, each photograph, each document reminded him that the past was not gone. It was waiting to be understood. The house had been silent for so long, but now it had a voice, and Tom was listening. One day, as he cleaned the attic, Tom found a photograph that made him pause. It was a group picture of the family standing in front of the very house he now owned. They were smiling, holding hands, and dressed in their finest clothes. But there was something in their eyes, a hint of worry, that made Tom wonder what they had been hiding. He looked at the photograph for a long time, trying to imagine the lives behind the smiles. He knew that the story was not yet complete, that there were more secrets waiting to be found. Tom felt a sense of purpose he had never known before. This was no longer just a house he had bought for $99. It was a place with history, with stories, and with mysteries that demanded to be uncovered. He felt connected to the past in a way he had never expected, and he knew that he had to continue searching, learning, and understanding. As night fell, Tom sat in the living room with the photographs and letters spread before him. The house was quiet, except for the occasional creak of the old floorboards. He felt a calm determination. The hidden clues had started to reveal themselves, and he was ready to follow them wherever they led. The house, once abandoned and forgotten, was beginning to reveal its secrets, and Tom was ready to uncover them all. He realized that the journey ahead would not be easy. There were still mysteries to solve, documents to analyze, and stories to uncover. But for the first time in his life, Tom felt a sense of excitement and connection that he had not experienced since leaving the military. He was no longer just restoring a house. He was restoring history, memory, and the lives of people who had been forgotten. And as he turned off the lights and prepared to sleep, Tom felt a quiet confidence. He had found the beginning of a story that would take him deeper into the past than he had ever imagined. The house had spoken, and he had listened. Now, he was ready to discover what lay hidden in its walls and what truths had waited 70 years to be found. Tom could not stop thinking about the hidden room, the key, and the letters he had discovered. Each day, he felt as though the house was speaking to him, guiding him toward truths that had been buried for decades. He realized that the discoveries he had made were only the beginning. To truly understand the story of the house and the family who had lived there, he would need to dig deeper into the town's history. He began his investigation at the local library, a quiet place filled with the scent of old books and polished wood. Tom spent hours poring over newspapers from decades ago, searching for mentions of the family. The more he read, the more he realized that the house had once been well known in the community. The family had hosted events, celebrated milestones, and been active in local gatherings. Yet there were also small, curious gaps in the records, events that seemed to be missing or unexplained. One article from the 1950s caught his attention. It mentioned a theft in the town and a subsequent disappearance that had never been solved. The names in the article matched some of the names he had seen in the letters and photographs from the house. Tom felt a shiver of excitement. Could the family who had lived in his house be connected to this long-forgotten story? He knew that he had to find out more. The next day, Tom visited the town hall. He requested old property records, police reports, and any documents related to the family. The clerk was helpful, pulling out stacks of papers that had been stored for decades. Tom carefully examined each one, cross-referencing them with the letters and photographs he had found. Slowly, a picture began to emerge. The family had experienced hardships that had been recorded in official documents, but had never been fully understood. There were mentions of disputes, theft, people moving away under mysterious circumstances. Tom realized that solving the mystery would require more than just reading documents. He decided to speak with elderly neighbors who might remember the family and the events of the past. Over the next few weeks, he visited several homes, knocking on doors and introducing himself. At first, people were cautious, but as he explained his interest in the house and its history, they began to open up. One elderly woman named Mrs. Lane recalled the family vividly. She remembered playing with the children in the yard and attending gatherings in the house, but she also spoke of unusual event objects going missing, heated arguments between neighbors, and the sudden departure of the family. She admitted that she had never understood the full story, but her memories added pieces to the puzzle Tom was trying to solve. Another neighbor, Mr. Harris, shared a story about seeing a stranger near the house late at night many years ago. According to him, the stranger had been searching for something, though no one knew what. Mr. Harris had always thought it was nothing important. Yes, just someone curious about an abandoned property. But now, after discovering the hidden room in the letters, Tom realized that the stranger might have been connected to the events that had disrupted the family's life. With each conversation, he began to connect the dots. He could see a timeline for Mina, sequence of events that explained why the family had suddenly disappeared from the town's records. There were letters describing worries about theft, threats from unknown people, and hints that the family had tried to protect something valuable. The hidden room in the house made sense now. It had been a safe place to store items that were important to them, determined to understand the full story. Tom returned to the house and began examining the items in the hidden room more closely. He found documents that detailed financial transactions, letters from friends and relatives, and photographs that showed important gatherings. Among these items, he found a small box labeled "Private." Inside were letters and papers that seemed to hold the key to understanding the mysterious events. One letter, in particular, caught his attention. It was addressed to someone named Samuel, and it described events that had led to the family's disappearance. According to the letter, there had been a theft in the town, and the family had been wrongly suspected of being involved. They had taken measures to protect themselves, hiding important items in the house, and eventually leaving town to avoid further trouble. The letter expressed sadness at leaving their home, but also hoped that someday someone would uncover the truth. Tom felt a mixture of relief and sadness. He understood why the family had left, and he could see how fear and misunderstanding had shaped their lives. He also realized that the family had taken steps to preserve their story, leaving clues that would eventually lead someone to discover the truth. And now, that someone was him. Over the next few weeks, Tom continued his investigation, carefully documenting everything he found. He created a timeline of events, linking letters, photographs, and documents to specific moments in the family's life. He noted the theft mentioned in the letter, the stranger seen by Mr. Harris, and the sudden departure of the family. Slowly, the story became clear, a story of love, fear, resilience, and the importance of preserving one's history. Tom also began to share his findings with the town. He visited the local historical society and gave presentations about the family and the house. People were fascinated by the story, and many began to remember events they had long forgotten. The house that had been abandoned and neglected for decades was now becoming a place of interest, a site where history could be preserved and appreciated. Through his investigation, Tom also learned more about the family's personal lives. He discovered that they had been deeply involved in the community, helping neighbors, celebrating holidays, and participating in town events. They had loved their home and had taken care to preserve it, even in the face of challenges. The hidden room, the letters, and the photographs were evidence of their care, foresight, and desire to be remembered. As Tom pieced together the story, he began to understand the lessons it offered. He realized that history was not just about dates and events. It was about people, their choices, and their experiences. The family who had lived in his house had faced difficulties, but they had also shown resilience, love, and wisdom. Their story was a reminder that every person leaves a mark, even if it is hidden for decades. One afternoon, while reviewing the documents in the hidden room, Tom discovered a final piece of the puzzle. It was a letter written by the woman who had originally hidden the items, addressed to future discoverer. In the letter, she explained why the items had been hidden and what she hoped someone would learn from them. She expressed a desire for the truth to be known, for the family's name to be cleared, for the house to be appreciated as a place of history and memory. Tom felt a deep sense of responsibility. He understood that his role was not just to restore the house, but to honor the family's wishes. He carefully organized the letters, documents, and photographs, ensuring that their story would be preserved for future generations. He also began planning ways to share the story with the town, so that the family would finally be remembered and appreciated. The investigation also brought Tom a sense of personal fulfillment. He had spent years searching for purpose and meaning after leaving the military. Now he had found it in the house and its history. Every discovery, every letter, every photograph added depth to his understanding of the past and connected him to people he had never met. He felt a sense of peace, knowing that he was making a difference by preserving their story. As the weeks turned into months, Tom continued to explore the house and uncover its secrets. Each room held new surprises, from forgotten trinkets to hidden compartments. He documented everything meticulously, creating a record that would serve as a permanent archive of the family's life. The house, once silent and abandoned, was now filled with purpose and memory. Tom also began to notice the impact of his work on the community. Neighbors who had once walked past the house without a thought now stopped to talk, ask questions, and share their own memories. The town was reconnecting with its history, and Tom felt proud to be the one facilitating this connection. He realized that uncovering the past was not just about solving a mystery. It was about bringing people together and reminding them of the value of memory and heritage. One evening, as Tom sat in the living room with photographs spread across the table, he reflected on his journey. He thought about the family who had lived here, the struggles they had faced, and the courage they had shown in protecting their story. He felt a sense of gratitude for the opportunity to uncover their history and a sense of responsibility to ensure that it was preserved. Tom knew that his investigation was far from over. There were still questions to answer, mysteries to solve, and connections to make. But he felt confident that he was on the right path. The house had revealed its secrets slowly, guiding him step by step, and he was ready to follow wherever the story led. As he prepared to leave the house that night, Tom looked around and smiled. The walls that had once been silent were now filled with life, memory, and history. The hidden clues had led him to understand a family, a home, and a town in ways he had never imagined, and he knew that the journey was only beginning. The past had been uncovered, but the future held new possibilities for the house, the town, and for him. Tom could feel the weight of the house's secrets pressing on him. After weeks of careful investigation, poring over letters, photographs, and documents, he was closer than ever to understanding the truth. Each piece of evidence seemed connected, forming a puzzle that had been left unfinished for 70 years. The family who had once lived here had hidden more than memories. They had hidden answers, clues, and explanations for events the town had never understood. One morning, Tom returned to the hidden room in the basement. The morning sun filtered through the small basement window, casting light on the stacks of papers, letters, and photographs he had organized meticulously. He felt a renewed determination. Today, he would try to piece everything together and discover the full story. He spread the documents across the floor, creating a timeline of events, matching letters to photographs and newspaper clippings. Each item seemed to lead naturally to the next, as though guiding him toward the truth as he examined a particularly fragile document. Tom noticed an official report that had been overlooked. It mentioned a theft of valuable family possessions and hinted that the family had been wrongly accused by neighbors who did not understand the full story. According to the report, someone had stolen items from the family home, and the townspeople, seeing the family's distress, had assumed they were hiding something themselves. Tom realized that this misunderstanding had caused fear and distrust, ultimately forcing the family to leave town in order to protect themselves. The letters he had found earlier now made sense in a new way. Margaret, the woman who had lived in the house, carefully recorded each event, leaving hints for someone in the future to understand what had happened. The letters spoke of worry, planning, and a hope that the truth would one day be revealed. Tom felt a deep sense of respect for her foresight. She had not only tried to protect her family, but had also left a path for the future to uncover what had been hidden. As he continued, Tom discovered a photograph that had been tucked away behind an old painting. It showed the family standing outside the house, but behind them, in the shadows, were figures that seemed out of place. He compared it with other photographs and letters, realizing that these figures were likely the people responsible for the theft. They had been involved in a plot that had disrupted the family's life and forced them into hiding. The photograph, once forgotten, had become a key piece of evidence in uncovering the full story. Tom then turned to the journal that Margaret had written. He read passages where she described the fear and confusion her family had felt. She wrote about receiving threats from strangers, noticing suspicious activity around the house, and hiding valuables in the basement for safety. She also wrote about leaving clues for someone in the future, someone who could understand the truth and set the record straight. The careful and deliberate nature of her writing impressed Tom. She had been patient, observant, and clever in her approach, ensuring that her family's story would not be lost by the afternoon. Tom had created a clear narrative of events. He could see exactly what had happened 70 years ago. The theft had occurred when no one was home, and the family had been blamed unfairly. The neighbors had reacted out of fear and misunderstanding, and the family, realizing that their home and safety were at risk, had left town. They had hidden items in the house to preserve their memories and to protect the truth from being distorted. It was a story of injustice, misunderstanding, and careful planning. Tom felt a mixture of emotions. There was sadness for the family who had suffered due to circumstances beyond their control. There was relief, knowing that the mystery was finally being solved. And there was admiration for the intelligence and foresight of the family, who had ensured that their story would be uncovered in the future. Tom realized that he was not just a discoverer of history, he was a participant in the continuation of that history. By uncovering the truth, he was fulfilling a responsibility left for him decades ago. With this understanding, Tom began to organize the items in the house more carefully. He created sections for letters, photographs, documents, and small keepsakes, each labeled with information about its origin and significance. He wanted anyone who visited the house in the future to be able to follow the story and understand what had happened. The house, once abandoned and silent, was becoming a living museum of memory and history. One day, while examining a set of letters, Tom noticed a recurring name: Harold. According to the letters, Harold had been a trusted family friend who had assisted in hiding the valuables and protecting the family's secrets. Tom realized that Harold had played a critical role in ensuring that the family's story survived, even as they left town. He was impressed by the loyalty and foresight shown by people who had long been forgotten in the town's history. Tom decided that the town itself should know the full story. He visited the local newspaper office and shared his discoveries with the editor. Together, they planned a series of articles that would reveal the family's history, the theft and the misunderstandings that had caused the family to leave. The editor was fascinated, recognizing the importance of uncovering such a long-hidden story. Tom provided photographs, letters, and documents to support the narrative. The articles were published over several weeks. The town responded with interest and appreciation. People who had grown up hearing only fragments of the story were now able to understand the full picture. They learned about the family, their challenges, and the clever ways they had preserved their history. Tom received letters from residents expressing gratitude for his work and admiration for the care he had taken in telling the story accurately. Despite the attention from the town, Tom remained focused on the house itself. He continued to restore the rooms, keeping original features intact, while ensuring that the hidden room and its contents were protected. Visitors were allowed to view certain areas, but the most important documents and photographs were kept safe. Tom wanted to maintain the integrity of the house and the family's story, ensuring that future generations could learn from it. During this process, Tom discovered an old map tucked into one of the letters. It showed locations within the town that had been significant to the family. By following the map, Tom uncovered small landmarks, such as the site of a family picnic, a favorite garden spot, and the location where the theft had likely occurred. These discoveries added depth to the story and allowed Tom to visualize the family's life in a way that was both personal and tangible. Tom also realized that the story had lessons beyond history. It was a reminder of the importance of understanding, compassion, and the dangers of jumping to conclusions. The family had been judged unfairly, yet they had responded with intelligence and foresight rather than anger. Tom reflected on how much could be learned from their approach to life. Even 70 years later, as months passed, the house became a place of connection and reflection. People from the town visited to see the restored rooms and learn about the family. Tom gave guided tours, sharing the story of the hidden room, the letters, and the photographs. Visitors were captivated by the depth of history preserved in the house and impressed by the care Tom had taken in uncovering and presenting it. One afternoon, a woman approached Tom with tears in her eyes. She introduced herself as a distant relative of the family who had lived in the house. She had never known the full story, and now, thanks to Tom, she finally understood why her grandparents had left town. She thanked Tom for giving her family a place in history and for preserving the memory of those who had been forgotten. Tom felt a profound sense of satisfaction. He realized that the work he had done was more than restoration. It was reconciliation with the past. Tom also reflected on his own journey. The house, with its hidden clues and forgotten history, had given him purpose, connection, and a sense of fulfillment. He had entered the house as a veteran seeking a simple home, but he had discovered a life rich with history, mystery, and human emotion. The investigation had transformed him, showing him that even forgotten places can hold lessons, stories, and meaning. By the time he had completed the restoration and shared the story with the town, the house had truly become a place of history. The hidden room remained a testament to the family's foresight, and the letters, photographs, and documents preserved the memory of their lives. Tom had not only uncovered a 70-year-old mystery, but had also ensured that the family would finally be remembered and appreciated. One evening, as the sun set over the town, Tom sat on the porch, looking at the house he had restored. The walls that had once held secrets now held stories. The air that had once been filled with silence was now filled with life, memory, and history. He felt a deep connection to the family who had lived there and to the town itself. The house was no longer just a building. It was a living testament to resilience, foresight, and the importance of preserving the past. After months of uncovering the secrets of the house and sharing the story with the town, Hakoon finally felt ready to focus on making it a home. The investigation and discovery had been exciting, but now it was time to bring life back to the house in a more personal way. He wanted it to be a place that honored the family who had lived there, preserved the history he had uncovered, and also served as a warm and welcoming home for himself. Tom started with the basics. He repaired broken windows, fixed the roof, and painted the walls with soft, neutral colors that complemented the original woodwork. He replaced broken floorboards and polished the ones that had survived decades of wear. Each repair was done carefully, with respect for the house's age and character. While working, Tom often thought about Margaret, her letters, and the careful way she had preserved the family's memories. He felt a sense of connection to her, as if she were guiding him in how to care for the home, while restoring the rooms. Tom made sure to keep some of the original features intact. The fireplace in the living room, the carved banister on the stairs, and the old cabinets in the kitchen were all cleaned and preserved rather than replaced. He wanted the house to retain its history, to show visitors and family members the traces of life that had once existed there. Every corner, every detail, seemed to tell a story if one looked closely enough. Tom also transformed the garden. The yard had been overgrown and wild when he first arrived, but he patiently cleared the weeds, planted flowers, and trimmed the trees. He created small garden paths and added benches where one could sit and reflect. The garden became a space that combined the beauty of nature with the memory of the family who had once enjoyed it. He imagined children playing on the lawn, neighbors visiting for summer tea, and family gatherings taking place under the shade of the trees as the house took shape. Tom decided to create a special area dedicated to the family's history. He arranged the letters, photographs, and documents he had discovered in the hidden room into a display that could be viewed by visitors. Each item was carefully labeled with its significance and the story behind it. The photographs captured moments of joy, the letters revealed thoughts and fears, and the documents detailed events that had shaped their lives. Tom felt proud to give the family's story a permanent home. Word of Tom's restoration work spread throughout the town. People began visiting not just to see the house, but to experience the history it contained. Old neighbors who had known the family came to reminisce, sharing memories and stories that added depth to what Tom had uncovered. Younger residents came to learn about the town's past. Seeing firsthand how one family's story could reveal so much about community resilience and human kindness, Tom also used the opportunity to educate people about the importance of preserving history. He spoke at local schools, telling students about the family, the hidden room, the letters that had survived for 70 years. He encouraged them to pay attention to the world around them, to respect history, and to understand the value of memories. Children were captivated by the story, imagining themselves as detectives uncovering secrets in an old house. Tom enjoyed seeing the excitement in their eyes, knowing that the family's legacy would live on through future generations. While much of his time was spent restoring the house and sharing its history, Tom also focused on making it a home for himself. He furnished the rooms with simple but comfortable furniture, blending modern convenience with the charm of the past. He hung curtains that allowed sunlight to fill the rooms and placed rugs that added warmth to the floors. He created a cozy reading nook in the living room, where he could sit with a cup of tea and look through the photographs and letters he had. Carefully preserved. Tom also created spaces for quiet reflection. In the garden, he added a small bench under a large tree where he could sit and think. He often spent hours there, reflecting on the journey that had brought him to this point. The house had become more than a home. It was a symbol of connection between past and present, between memory and life. Every repair, every detail, and every photograph reminded him of the family who had once lived there, and the responsibility he carried to honor their story. As months turned into a year, the house became a hub for the community. Tom hosted small gatherings, inviting neighbors to share tea and stories. He allowed local historians to examine the documents and letters, ensuring that the family's story was preserved not just in the house, but also in the town's historical records. The house that had once been abandoned and silent now buzzed with life, curiosity, and respect for history. Tom also invited the distant relatives of the family to visit. They had learned about the discoveries through articles and word of mouth. When they arrived, they were amazed by the care Tom had taken in restoring the house and preserving their family's history. They walked through the rooms, read the letters, and examined the photographs, tears of gratitude in their eyes. They thanked Tom for giving them a chance to connect with their past, for uncovering the truth, and for creating a home that honored the family's memory. Through all of this, Tom felt a profound sense of fulfillment. He had come to the house as a veteran seeking a simple home, but he had found something much greater. He had uncovered a family's story, solved a mystery, created a space where history, memory, and life could coexist. The house had given him purpose, and he had given it a future. It was a partnership across time, linking his life to the lives of those who had come before. One evening, as he sat in the living room, surrounded by letters and photographs, Tom reflected on the journey he had taken. The house had been abandoned and neglected, yet it had held stories that demanded to be discovered. The family had left clues, hidden documents, and photographs to ensure that someone would one day understand their lives. Tom had listened, uncovered, and preserved. He felt honored to have been entrusted with their story. Tom also recognized the lessons the house offered. History is not just in books. It lives in places, objects, and memories. Every home, every photograph, and every letter can reveal a story if one takes the time to observe and understand. The family had shown resilience, intelligence, and foresight, qualities that Tom admired deeply. Their story was a reminder that even in difficult circumstances, people can act with wisdom and hope, leaving a legacy that lasts beyond their own lifetimes As the seasons changed, the house continued to transform. In the spring, flowers bloomed in the garden, adding color and life. In the summer, the sunlight filled every room, highlighting the beauty of the restored woodwork and the carefully preserved documents. In the fall, the trees turned gold and red, casting a warm glow on the house. In the winter, the fireplace became a central gathering place, where friends and neighbors would come together to share stories, warmth, and memories. Tom often thought about the family who had lived here. He imagined Margaret writing her letters, the children playing in the yard, and the family enjoying quiet evenings by the fireplace. He felt a connection to them, a sense that their presence still lingered in the house. By preserving their story, he had given them a voice across time, ensuring that they would not be forgotten. The hidden room remained a central feature of the house. Though it was now carefully secured and organized, visitors could see photographs and letters, but the most important documents were kept safe, ensuring that the family's legacy would continue for generations. Tom felt proud of this accomplishment. The house had been transformed from a forgotten, abandoned property into a home full of history, memory, and life. As the years passed, Tom's work continued. He added new displays, restored additional items, and continued to share the story with the community. The house became known as a place of history, mystery, and learning. Visitors came from nearby towns and even from distant places to experience the story and see the careful preservation work. Tom took pride in knowing that he had created something that would last far beyond his own lifetime. Through it all, Tom maintained the balance between preserving history and creating a home. He lived in the house with comfort and simplicity, while honoring the family who had once called it their own. The house became a symbol of continuity, connection, and respect for the past. It was a place where memories were preserved, stories were shared, and history was alive. One evening, as he looked out over the garden and the house bathed in the golden light of sunset, Tom felt a deep sense of satisfaction. The house had started as an abandoned, neglected place, but now it was a home full of warmth, memory, and life. He had uncovered mysteries, preserved history, and given the family's story a lasting home. It was more than he had ever imagined when he first bought it for $99. Tom whispered softly to himself, "This house is no longer forgotten. Its story will live on, and so will the family who lived here." He sat in the garden, surrounded by flowers and memories, reflecting on the journey that had brought him here. The house had given him purpose, history had given him wisdom, and the family had given him a connection to a past he would never forget. In every creak of the floorboards, in every photograph, and in every letter, he could feel their presence, guiding him and reminding him of the importance of remembering